the season. Starting off with Fred VanVleet and the Rockets point guard situation, luckily they do have bodies. Now, will these bodies step up and produce is the question. One person that I am banking on stepping up and just having a huge impact, not only for the backcourt, but for the team in general, offensively and defensively, is Amen Thompson. Coming into his third year, I'm not sure if people remember that he came into the league or came into the draft as a lead guard. So thankfully, you do have somebody in-house who has an elite ceiling who plays that position. Now it's going to look a lot different. He's not the shooter Fred VanVleet was. He's going to definitely speed up the pace. He's more of a downhill, attack the basket type point guard. But fortunately, this team has a lot of young bodies, so I don't think speeding up the game or speeding up their offense is a bad thing because they have the bodies and the legs to do so, which I think Amen Thompson will do. He averaged, and I'm just guessing here, I don't have my notes up, but he averaged somewhere around 14, 8, and 3 last year, if I'm not mistaken, that being 8 rebounds. With him stepping into this full-time point guard position, I do feel like his ceiling is an all-star and maybe even an all-NBA caliber player. Just because what he can do on the defensive end and just how impactful he is on offense. Rather that be getting second chance points and putbacks. He's a great rebounder. And I think he won't have any problem producing. Like I said, it'll look different, and they're going to have to get that shooting from a few different places because, like I said, you lose Fred VanVleet, who was the best shooter on the team last year. But you also lose Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks. And those 3 guys led the team, that Houston Rockets team last year, in 3-point attempts per game. So there is a lot of shots to get made up for. You bring on Kevin Durant in the trade, who last year was still 26, 27 a game, points that is, and 40% from 3. Still very productive. He is getting a little older, if I'm not mistaken. He's around 36 years old, but still very productive. And any team could use a guy like Kevin Durant, future Hall of Famer, future first ballot Hall of Famer. Anybody could use a guy like Kevin Durant. And most importantly, he's still active on the defensive end. So that fits into the Raptors. That fits into the Rockets culture with them being a top 5 defense last year. And I fully expect them to be a top 5 to 10 defense again this year. You also add Dorian Finney-Smith, a 3-and-D guy, honing in on that defense end, but also filling in that gap of 3-point shooting that you lost. We're losing those 3 players that I brought up earlier. Another 40% 3-point shooter. So you lose those 3 guys I named, but you get Kevin Durant and Dorian Finney-Smith, who are both elite 3-point shooters, and both are pretty active on the defensive end, and especially Dorian Finney-Smith, where I think his role will be just to be very disruptive. I think DFS and Amen Thompson will be easily the best defensive backcourt in the game, if not one of the best defensive backcourts in the game. Just a lot of grit, a lot of on-ball pressure, and they're going to cause a lot of steals, and I think the Rockets, like I said, will still be a top 5 to 10 defense in the league. Now, with Fred VanVleet being gone, there's not a question about if Amen Thompson will step up. I think everybody's with me on that. We expect him to fully step up. But I think the biggest question mark is guys like J.D. Davidson, who played with Ime back in Boston, who's now on the squad. But most importantly, Reed Sheppard. He's coming into year 2. You spent the top 5 draft pick on him last year. You expect him to play. In the sport of basketball, usually when you select players that high, you expect them to have a more immediate impact, which is no fault to Reed Sheppard. He went to a really good team, a really crowded backcourt. At the time, it was twin Amen Thompson, Fred VanVleet, Cam Whitmore, Aaron Holiday. So it was a lot of guards back there. Unfortunately, because of injury, he does have the opportunity to show who he is, to add. And I think he could be that third slot to fill into that 3-point shooting. He's a great 3-point shooter. Came out of college as one of the best, if not the best shooter of his draft class. I think it was Jared McCain, but, I mean, he was right there with him. So, Reed Sheppard, he has to step up, man. He's got to – and I don't really question Reed Sheppard making shots. Is he going to step up offensively? I have no doubt about that. The big red question mark is defensively. To play for Ime, you got to be able to play defense. To stay on the court for Ime, you got to be able to play defense. He's not a bad defender. I think the effort is there. But just as an on-ball defender, it's just not there yet. And I think in the NBA, that is something you can learn. A lot of players come into the league with that hump they have to get over defensively, but they turn into great defenders. Now, we don't need him to be a great defender. You do have DFS and Amen Thompson back there, but you just have to compete, show effort, similar to what Jalen Green did. Not the greatest on-ball defender, but he showed effort, he made plays, and he bought into the defensive culture. So as long as Reed Sheppard can do that, I think he can find him some minutes and be very productive in this offense, especially in that 6-man role. So a lot of questions with the Houston Rockets. I'm more on the higher side. A lot of people aren't too high on the Rockets, but I think Kevin Durant can get those guys rolling. I think him and Alfred Sengun is an interesting dynamic. Sengun does have to improve that 3-point shooting, man. He was 29% from 3 last year. I think that does have to improve because I do see the Rockets spacing the floor out a little bit more. In that series with Golden State, they got exposed for not being able to shoot the long ball consistently. So we're going to need guys like Jabari Smith, Reed Shepard, Kevin Durant, DFS. I mean, everybody, obviously, you want them to hit their shots, but those guys I named definitely have to be more of the guys we lean on to on a night-to-night basis. My one big prediction coming out of Houston, let's just assume that they stay healthy. Let's assume that Kevin Durant is averaging Kevin Durant numbers. Let's just say 26, 27 a game, 7 boards, 4 assists, 40% from 3. And the Rockets continue to be a top 5 defense. I believe Kevin Durant can be the oldest MVP in league history if all those things check off, with one more thing being the Rockets finish as a top 3 or 4 seed in the West. If all those boxes are checked off, I definitely believe Kevin Durant will be in the MVP conversation, and not unless it's another ridiculous season from guys like SGA, Nikola Jokic, or Giannis Antetokounmpo. I do think Kevin Durant will be in that conversation. And this league is known to have voters fatigue, so he might benefit from not being in that conversation the last couple years. So